I'm really glad, baby. I'm excited to spend this time with you. We've been planning it for a while, and I got sick, and you wouldn't have liked hearing from me then. But I I think I actually want to start out with a question. All of you are mentors, and I would like to know if there's a few people who could speak up and say what their biggest challenge is in mentoring. Uh, as you mentor people, what is the thing that is most perplexing to you or challenging? How to do, what do I do with this? So I'd be really interested in some input on that. Um,
Yeah, Dad, I would love to, if anyone can respond, like, I would love to hear from us, as Grandma says, what has been the biggest challenge in mentorship? Shaban, do you want to go first?
Okay. So I do more of discipleship, which is like a mentorship, I can say.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think for me, the greatest challenge is when I don't see like the fruits that I desire. For instance, I'm discipling this person, this student, so that he or she can be able to reach fellow students by sharing the gospel. So when he or she failed to take the initiative, I think that's very disappointing and it's a big challenge sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You question, I imagine you question yourself, you question the mentee, and you wonder what you could have done differently, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. That's a good one. And I think it's probably one that almost everybody deals with is you're you're mentoring somebody and you're hoping for certain results, and then they don't seem to come. So you wonder what the problem is. Is it with me? Is it with them? And I don't think um, I think that the first thing I'd say is that looking for a problem in the process of mentoring isn't probably the issue. It's probably more understanding your men mentee, right? Mentor, mentee. And it's understanding them. Um, and so for that, uh, if you're doing your program and it doesn't seem like you're getting the results you want, then it might be a good time to step back and get to know your mentee a little bit better. Find out a little bit more about their personality, a little bit more about their family, a little bit more about what they see as their gifts and their challenges. I know, for instance, in sharing the Lord with people, a lot of people are, uh, I'd say, shy, but I haven't met a lot of shy Africans, but they are there, I know. And excuse me. Um, but also, I think other things can get in the way too. For instance, if your mentee has had experience in their family where they weren't allowed a voice very much, then it's really hard to speak up. It's very hard to say what you want to. So it's like if you find out more about their family relationships, then you can find out if they even know how to speak up and speak out what they have in their hearts, or if they get a little tongue-tied when that happens, because normally it doesn't end well, for instance, in their home. Does that make some sense? I have more to say, but I just want to make sure that we're connecting here on things. Another thing, and I think that this would be often an issue, and that is that there's something in their life that they are nervous about sharing with you. And it's it's something dark. in their opinion, it's too dark. Too dark to tell somebody that they are trying to impress a little bit. Wouldn't you say, mentees, they want to impress their mentor a little bit? They want to be able to say, be able to have the mentor saying, you're doing great. And so mentees can be tempted to just say what needs to be said to be commended. But mentees, if sometimes they have some sort of buried sin that just makes it very difficult for them to step out and speak about the Lord. If that happens, I think there's a few different ways. First of all, you're probably going to have to make them feel, and this is what we should be doing anyway, if we're a mentor. We should make them feel as absolutely comfortable as possible to be themselves. In order for that to happen, they have to know that no matter what they say, you are going to love them anyway. This is where the challenge comes down on us, because we have to, as mentors, then we have to have come to the place where we're able to reflect that aspect of God's love, that there's nothing that shocks us too much, or that we just detest too much, or whatever, that we can't speak to them about it, even if we don't know what to tell them to do, but we can't talk to them about it. I'm going to share something. It's kind of personal, but it really speaks to what I'm trying to talk about. And that is that when I was young, 7 years old, I was sexually assaulted by an older person. And so I'm pretty, I grew up at kind of sensitive in that area. It's hard for me to watch certain movies. It's hard for me to talk about certain things in general. However, in the position of a mentor or a counselor, for instance, if somebody comes forward and tells me that they have assaulted, they have molested, they have, done something like that to another person, then it's my job to be able to sit there and hear them the way that Jesus would hear them. And when a person does something like that, they inevitably feel horrified with themselves. They feel so bad about what they've done, and they don't necessarily understand what has pushed them to do that. There's a lot of things like this. Addictions. A lot of people feel very uncomfortable sharing about an addiction they have. They may have not even identified it as an addiction, but they're very uncomfortable sharing it because they know that that's a very negative thing. Wouldn't you say that's right, Branley? Yeah. So it's like when these things, or they may have experienced something that is possibly getting in the way that they haven't been able to share with you because it's so ugly. What I just shared with you, there was a lot about myself. It was a long time when I really had a hard time sharing that with anybody because it still wasn't resolved in myself. Yeah, I had to get it resolved before I could talk about it peacefully to people and share what I learned out of that whole ugly experience. But those kind of experiences can get in the way of a person, for instance, sharing the Lord with other people. It can, all kinds of experiences like that can just get in people's way. And so if you get to know your mentee a little better, you may find out that there are blockades to them moving in the direction that you have in mind for them. I think another thing is to be sure that you and the mentee share the same goal for themselves. If you're hoping for something that the mentee is like that's not their strength, and that's not what they do well, and it's actually not what they're reaching for, then you're going to have a hard time reaching that goal. And the job of a mentor is to help a mentee reach it, well, help them set their goals and to reach their goals. But we have to be sure that we're not setting goals for somebody else. We are we're finding out what they're good at, and we're coming up with goals that fit with what they're good at. So for instance, I just will share this little awkwardness situation. I am certainly not a person who has ever been really great at just walking up to strangers and sharing the Lord. Honestly, I'll tell you the truth. When I think of that, I kind of go, well, how on earth do you do that? How do you walk up and start a conversation with a stranger about something that, like in our country, is very personal? I had another experience which was very strange here. There was a period of time in which I was working for an organization that worked with street kids. It was during that time that Russia had a big change, and there was a lot of Christians were able to leave Russia, and a lot of them came to the United States, and they were so excited to be there where they could openly share about the Lord. And that's what they wanted to do. And what they didn't understand was that our culture is quite different, in that respect. In our culture, you've got to really know a person. You've got to be their friend before you talk about religion. And so they were trying to start what we call a cold call, witnessing to people about the Lord. And in our culture, it's kind of like don't talk to me about that. You don't know me, that kind of thing. And so we had to talk about that, changing their view on that. And it was really hard because here they had been in Russia where they were risking their lives to share about the Lord. And they were doing it there, and they were doing it cold with people. And here they come to the United States where it's supposed to be fine to share with people, and they're getting nowhere. So that's an interesting thing to think about, isn't it? What's your culture like when it comes to sharing the Lord? What works best? One thing that we found in the United States is that for instance, in church attendance, the people who tend to be in church and stay in church their lives are ones that have been led to the Lord by friends or family. Now you can't just become family to somebody, but you can become a friend. But so in our country, witnessing to another person takes a huge investment. You you get to know them, and you become their friend. You get to like them even though they don't know the Lord, care about them. And then there's ground for sharing. And I found it easiest to share in that respect. But anyway, find out more about their personality too, what the kind of person they are, and how they would, and help them find the way that they can and share the love of God in a way that works for their personality. And these are all just ideas about how to work with a person and achieve the goals that they've set and that you've set with them to achieve. And if you've been receiving a little bit of training and counseling, if you do run into some kind of issue that is in their life that's getting in the way, then hopefully you'll be able to help them get through that issue. And you can talk to Branley And, if you want to, you can talk to me about how to help them through whatever issue it is that's getting in the way of them moving forward in an area where they really want to move forward. So is that answer your question to some degree, Siobhan?
Sure, it does. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
you're welcome. Anybody else got something that gets in the way when they're doing mentoring? That was probably everybody's issue. Can't hear you.
Yeah, I was trying to say, for those who have joined us so Grandma was trying to ask, what are some of the issues you encounter as you mentor others? What are some of the questions? And since all of us here are mentors in through purpose discovery, I really expect you to at least ask one or two things that are in your mind. So it's open for anyone who is ready to go. And from what Shaban asked, okay, Joshua, go ahead. I'll say what what I wanted to say later.
Yeah, so I have a question. There is one thing that I faced in my mentorship, and it is one of my mentees is older than me. So
Mhm.
sometimes it becomes, you can hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So one of my mentees is older than me. So sometimes it becomes hard to me to balance between the authority as a mentor
Hmm.
and a relationship. So I
Yeah,
mean balancing between being a guide and a friend. So that
yes.
sometimes it makes me it brings some of this it's bring like a challenge on how
Mhm.
I can help him in some ways
Yeah. Oh, I
because
could see
he is
that.
older than me.
Yes, I can see that is an issue and a difficult one at times. But honestly, I think that the answer to that is um, sincere humility, I guess is what I'm going to say. Because if you, and I'm sure you are, but if you're sincerely humble, then a person realizes that as a mentor, you bring certain things to this person, and often they have sought you out or whatever because they can see you have what they want. And so as a mentor, we recognize that we have some things that the mentee really needs and wants to grow in themselves and needs help growing them. They've struggled with this and they don't know how to do it. Um, and and God, for some reason, we are gifted in that area. We know how to do that, whatever it is. And kind of goes back to Shaban's question in a little bit too. A lot of people would like to share the Lord. They don't know how, they just can't figure out how start up a conversation, how you lead into that. They just don't know how you do it. Um, so, when a mentee is um, reaching out and they want to they want to learn from you, um, it's because they recognize that you have something they don't. On your side, you recognize I have something they don't, but they have a whole lot of things that I don't as well. They have experience. One of the things I learned while I was in my master's degree, um, and afterwards, before all this time, uh, I remember in one particular setting, actually, and this was undergrad degree, but I was going to a school where I was going to chapel every day. And I have to admit that was an awful lot of sermons. At one point, I imagined myself with a gunny sack that was full of sermons that I hadn't had time to think about and figure out. And during that time, too, I was a student and was having varied experiences. One, I was an old student, and that put me in a different position than some of the others. And also, sometimes they would seek me out for certain things. I remember one person asking me to proofread his his homework and stuff. Um, and the thing is that what I realized is that I had something he needed. He wasn't real good at grammar. And okay, so I'm good at that. Staying humble about that isn't hard. You know, it's like, so what? So I know about grammar. Um, but it's kind of almost like we have to take that attitude with anything that we know and are good at. We have to take the attitude that God was kind to me and put me in situations where and allowed me to be in situations where I learned about that particular skill that's needed in this situation. And that wasn't me. I didn't do something special or fancy to get that understanding or ability. That wasn't something that I managed to do through my skill or intelligence or whatever. I I was exposed and I learned, and that's how it happened. And so I gained that information, and now it's my job to share it. But always recognizing that the other person has had experiences and has learned things that I don't know. My husband was shared with me once about an experience where um, he was asking for some mentorship in an area, and the other person was younger than him, and that person felt odd about being his mentor. And he said, "You know how to do this, and I don't." And that's what I need from you. Don't be don't think that I can't be mentored because I'm older than you, because I don't know what you learned. Something about your life has put you in a position, or your way of looking at things or doing things has put you into a position where you know how to do this and I don't know how to do this. So I want you to teach me and show me how to do this. And so I really think that if you can take that stand of true humility, which is knowing what true humility is, knowing what you have to share, being grateful to God for the fact that you've got it, and being able to share it with others, and at the same time recognizing that there's many areas where this person that you're sharing with knows more than you, regardless of what the area might be. So it's like, for instance, let's say that I wanted to, and I do, I would like to learn to knit. And I have the rudimentary knowledge, but I need more in order to be able to actually create a garment or something like that. The person who teaches me might be younger than me, and that would be fine. If they know how to knit, then they have what I need. That doesn't mean that I don't have things that they might need. And that's okay. That's completely okay. Does that make sense? Yeshua? Yeshua? How do I say your name?
Do you understand?
Yeah, do you understand?
Yes, I understand, madam.
Does that help you?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Feel free to say no. I still have, this is still on my mind, because I can handle that. If I haven't answered your question, I'll keep hunting for the answer with you. So
Okay, thank you, madam.
Yeah,
you're
Grandma, I
welcome.
wanted to add something. Thank you so much for what you said about embracing sincere humility. So Joshua's question reminded me of a case where you are a pastor, pastoring a big church, but you're a young pastor, and the people you lead
Mm-hmm.
are older than you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it's important for a pastor to realize is probably leading these people in their spiritual growth,
Mm-hmm.
still has many other things to learn from these people.
Yes.
So the fact that you are mentoring someone spiritually and they are older than you doesn't mean that there's nothing you can learn from them. There will always be something you can learn from. The only thing
Yes.
I think uh, partly the African tradition has wrongly taught people to try and exercise so much authority,
Mm-hmm.
but mentorship is not exercising authority over someone's life. Is just basically being there as a steward, as a witness of the light. So
Yes.
it doesn't matter whether you are young or old, as long as you truly carry the light of God, these people will want to hear from you, will want to stay there. And yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to cement on this point. I think it's a call from Grandma that may we learn to carry ourselves with so much humility. I'll give you an example. This evening I was teaching a leadership course here at Cornerstone, and most of the people who are part of this class, they are working with organizations, big organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And they were also university students. When I was concluding, I made a statement and I said, you guys, we love the fact that you are here. You are our seniors, and you're sitting here to learn from juniors. We don't take it for granted. That statement, in many ways, make them feel welcomed, make them feel they are part of that program. So I think the more we relate closely with the Holy Spirit, He'll continue to give us wisdom on how to exercise humility in these circumstances.
Yes, exactly. You know, your example of a young pastor in a church, it makes me think of, for instance, a young pastor. His job is to guide and lead in spiritual areas, and that's what he focuses on. He spends his week, he's asking the Lord what to share, he's studying, he's learning, he's coming to the pulpit with something to share that he believes God has given him to share. Now, let's say that they are working on building a new classroom for the church or whatever, and you go into that, the pastor shows up to help with that. And there's going to be men there that know a whole lot more about how to do this than he does. Um, it's like this young man might walk over and see this older man smoothing, plastering and smoothing a wall and say, please show me how to do that. That's a skill. In the United States, um, yeah, a lot of people wanted to get into technology and that kind of thing. But one of the highest, really well-paying positions are positions in construction and painting and that kind of thing, because regular people don't know how to do it well, So every people can excel at anything. You meet a woman who's an older woman who's raised a bunch of children. She has skills that we can all learn from. It's there's just everybody builds skill in their lives, and if we recognize it and we place value on it, and then we recognize what God has given us to bring, and we put value on that. That's humility. So anybody else got a question? I don't know where we are on time, Brantley. Are you keeping track of that? Can't hear.
Yeah, I was saying we're still good. We have like 20 minutes to go. So
Okay, great. Anybody else run into a roadblock in their mentoring? Or
Oh,
some-
okay.
Okay.
That's okay. Good.
Ladies first.
Okay, fine. Well, Bibi, I would love. Okay, so there are these two scenarios that I would like for you to give us the tips or tricks or methods that we can use to help us on those situations. One, uh, so most of us sometimes we happen to mentor or counsel people who are far from, like we are not in the same location. So we
Mhm,
have to use phones and other means like that. And we know that when the people are near, it's more effective because you can read their signs, you can know how they're feeling. Like
mhm,
it's easier when you're near. So how best can we deal and mentor and counsel people who are far? What best ways we can use and tricks and techniques that will help us make sure that we do it effectively, even if we are far. And another scenario
mhm,
is so as mentors and counselors, we know that we are supposed to guide the people we are helping into them discovering the best way out of their situations. But
mhm,
sometimes we are tempted to advise and give them, like, you're going through this, do this. We are so tempted a lot of times because sometimes the situation, in our perspective, we see that the situations are clear and the ways out are very clear, and we really like wish to tell them just do this because that's easy. But we
Yes.
know that we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to guide them and help them do that. So how best can we overcome the temptations of advising, or what are the better ways to deal with people that are
Mhm,
difficult, like the people who know the best way out, but they really can't see, and how best can we help those people? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, I think that the first thing I'm going to talk about would actually fit for both of those issues. And it's very close to what the first, when we were first talking, I think with Shaban, and that is to even if it's a distant, you're doing distance mentoring, to be sure that you engage with your mentee um, in a deep and personal way and get to know them. Get to know them well. Make them comfortable with talking to you. Ask them lots of questions. Questions are great about their families, about them, about the things that they struggle with. Be willing to go deep in those areas. Be willing to explore deeply and because then you're going to build between yourself and them a deeper connection. And that's what you're looking for. The deeper that you can be connected with them, even though it's a distance kind of thing, the more successful your mentorship will be with them. Um, you can't mentor somebody truly if you don't know them. Not really. And too often we sort of attempt to do that. We, as mentors, and this speaks to your second question too, as mentors, we kind of have an idea where we think they ought to end up. And if we go into it with that attitude where we're just, from the minute we meet them, we're kind of leading them in the direction that we think they should go. And maybe we're right. I mean, and I'm not saying we're wrong. I'm saying that if we enter the relationship with that kind of energy, that I know where you need to go and let's go there, then you're going to find your mentee struggling because the first thing that we need to do is get to know them and set goals with them. Where do they want to go? Why have they even asked for or submitted to mentorship. What was it they were hoping to resolve? What is it they want to do that they don't know how to do? What is the hurdle in their life that they can't seem to get over? And then you explore that and explore that and explore that. I think that Brownlee would concur that whenever I am trying to help somebody with something, that I do my best to learn as much about it as I can. So I ask a lot of different questions. I mentioned talking about family. You know, so much of who a person is comes from their family. If we can understand the dynamics in the family better, then we will understand our client better, well, our mentee better. We'll understand where their some of their problems may have come from in the relationship and family. That's where honestly, that's the place where most of us pick up our difficulties, the things that get in our way. It has something to do with the way our family worked. And it doesn't have to be a bad family either. It can be a great family, but it often contributes to what gets in our way in moving forward in life. So get to know your mentee as well as you possibly can. Do everything you can to be humble and make them comfortable so that they feel comfortable to tell you anything and everything that they need to tell you. And I will tell you that can sometimes lead to hearing something that you're a little bit overwhelmed to hear. Some of the things that we just talked about. And you may be thinking, I don't know how to help with that. But God has a way of leading us. The Holy Spirit will guide us to help another person. Like for instance, somebody tells you that I'm going to bring up something kind of extreme just as an example, but supposing someone told you that they had murdered someone at some point in their life. And so you might feel just like, overwhelmed, like, my goodness, how do I help them with this? But the answer is we turn to the Holy Spirit and say, Lord, what? Holy Spirit, guide me. And we let ourselves follow him, follow the Holy Spirit in that. So I'm just suggesting get to know them very deeply. And then in regards to resisting the urge to advise, to tell people what to do about things. I think two things. One is remember that what seems like an obvious way to handle something to you may not be as easy as it sounds to you. Like you might say to a person who's having a problem with a drinking addiction to alcohol, you need to stay away from those bars and not drink anymore. Don't do that. Well, a person who has alcoholism, they can't just not do that. It sounds crazy to us if we're able to, that they can't, but they can't. And if that's hard to understand, try to think of something that it would be hard for you to not do. And then you get a better picture, People who have alcoholism, I've asked myself, well, how easy would it be for me to never have a bite of chocolate again in my life? That is a daunting thing. I like chocolate. I want to eat occasionally. I want to have a piece of chocolate. And they're facing something much harder in that they have something pushing them inside. And it's another chance for me to look at my the way I like chocolate. Maybe something's pushing me. But what I'm trying to say is our advice, one reason we don't do it is because often it's worthless to them. They can't use it. There's some reason in their life that they just can't do that. And so we get to know them. We get to know what they can do about it and what they can't do about it. Really good question is, well, what have you tried? What have you already tried in trying to deal with this issue? And right there, you'll get a list of things that they've tried that they didn't know how to, they couldn't. And then from that point, you can ask them, is there some little step you think you could take with God's help? Some step you could take. And you help them make plans to take that step rather than just giving them what could be just a leap. We give them a small step to take. People change in iotas. That's an English word. It's spelled IOTA, iota. And what it means is the smallest amount of forward movement as possible. Just the smallest amount. I mean, less than most of us can imagine. Iotas. And we also change in iotas. So the only person that can make the change is I. I can make the change, but nobody else can. Other people can help me. Other people can make suggestions. They can assist me, but they can't. I'm the one that has to make the change. So that's something to keep in mind with your mentees, is they are the ones that are going to have to make the change. So they are the ones that are going to have to determine what steps they can take. You are guiding them to look for the steps they can take. I have to do it. The second one is observe. Help the person to observe as much as they can about the issue they're working on. What happens when you try this? What happened when you tried that? What happened in the life of this other person who appears to have the same problem? You observe and observe and observe until you have quite a lot of information about what's going on. And then you think. So you've got an I for me, I can change. O for observe. T for think. So that's when you ask the Lord to show you how to think about this. How do I approach this? You think about it. You organize that information and you think, what does this mean to me in my struggle to overcome this, or my struggle to change in this way? What is the problem? This is when the thinking, takes all that observation and boils it down to what is the problem. And then after you thought about it, you think of a way of the next step you're going to take, and then you act. That's the A. So it's IOTA. I make the change. I observe everything I can about it, and I think about it and come up with an idea for movement, and then I act. And if you can help people to do that, they will move forward. It will be slow, but they will move forward. And that's all that's needed is forward movement. If you just like, for instance, there's a straight line with dots along it, straight on the ground, and you want that line to go up, you can put a dot very close to the line, up close to the beginning. You can put a dot very close there, just above the line, and then draw the line out, and it will, in the end, just that one little movement will move you, will take you far above what you would have done if you hadn't made that movement. And if you keep making those movements, you're going to make a lot of change. So even little changes are good. That's what moves us forward. So I know that whenever I start to advise, I get this nasty feeling in my stomach, like I ate something I shouldn't have, like, you are not helping right now. That's what my stomach tells me. You're not helping right now. So I back off of that. And I become humble And I say, let's look at this. Let's see what you could do about that, and help them look at it. So I hope that gives you some ideas. Lita, is that your name, Lita?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Was it helpful?
Yes, very, very.
Okay, good. Thank you. Dunstan, you had question. I want to get to it before we're done here.
Oh yeah, well, I was almost forgetting the question, but thank you for sharing. Yeah, so my concern, I have come across this scenario where one of my mentees is a typical Muslim friend. Yeah, so I wonder what ways I should employ so that I can balance that expression of my Christian values and exposing Jesus with respecting the mentee's beliefs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that in many ways we have a little more freedom than we would imagine, because Jesus is actually a well-respected prophet in Islam. And so when we quote him, we are actually quoting one of their most respected prophets. And that is something to keep in mind, that helps a person not to be too shy about quoting Jesus, or talking about what he did, or that kind of things. I think that the other way that helps us is to observe the line so we don't step over it, is to notice the times when we are speaking out of our own experience with Jesus, versus their situation, in which they don't have the same relationship with Jesus. The interesting thing is if they have studied their religion enough, they do have some mild relationship with Jesus, in the sense that they reverence him as a prophet. So it's good, I think, to understand where your particular mentee or counselee stands in that area. How much do they know about their own religion to know the position that Jesus has in it? And how do they feel whenever his name comes up? So whenever you first start talking to them and you want to quote Jesus, you can say, well, I know that we have different, me as a Christian and you as a Muslim, we have different views of Jesus, but so right now I just want to quote the prophet Jesus to you. And so you can quote him, at the same time acknowledging that he's much more to you, but not pushing that on him, on the other person. In that way, what we do is we're constantly bringing to our counselee's attention what we know and have experienced about Jesus, without putting pressure on them to make a change. So I think that honestly, you should feel free to quote Jesus to them, and that you should, other leaders and, quote a lot of people to this person, but don't feel shy about quoting Jesus, and recognize that when you do, you're quoting a prophet that's recognized in Islam. And then whenever it comes time to, if there is a time to recognize the difference between a Christian and a Muslim, it's to recognize that yes, we see Jesus differently than you do. And if you have a chance and it's the right place and time to witness to what that difference has meant to you, fine. Just don't push it on him. Give him the freedom to think and ponder it. makes me think of a situation we actually had a long time ago at in Arusha with a student my husband was working with, and it was a Muslim. And he worked with several Muslims. I think he had a total of about 3 clients who were Muslim. And there was one in particular who was working with some problems that were, just really hard family background, and creating a lot of personal difficulties in their present day life. And but John was careful to, Babu John was careful to respect the line. He never pushed his belief on the other person. He owned it. It belongs to me. I believe in Jesus. And quoting him whenever what Jesus said spoke to the situation. And there came this moment where the young man said to John, do you think it would help if I was a Christian? Do you think it would help me if I was a Christian? And John said, well, yes, I do. And so he said, okay, I want to be a Christian. And he gave his life to the Lord on the spot. And the next time we saw him was in chapel. And he was praising and worshiping the Lord in a way that was clear that his decision had been from the heart. And I think that it shows that this approach is probably the best with the Muslim client. It's just within yourself, you're acknowledging you have a right to your belief, and I'm not going to challenge it. But I'm also not going to be shy about sharing what my own experience is or sharing the wisdom of Jesus with you. Does that help, Dunstan? And is there anything else you want to ask about it?
No, ma'am. Thank you. That was so profound.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're there at Arusha because, those are my kids. So take good care of them, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else with a question before we wrap up?
I have one.
Yes, Gift.
Okay. My question is, what if the people I mentor already knew about Jesus before, as in they had a personal relationship with Jesus, but in the journey of their life with Jesus, they backslided.
Mhm.
So, meaning when I'm mentoring them, they know all about Jesus, they know about Christianity and having the relationship with Jesus. So how can I help them get back to the relationship with Jesus? Because sometimes you find like the things you're telling them, they already know. It's
They
not
already
something to them. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that for those people, it's helpful to for one thing, to help them to know that you love them you love them and respect them despite their falling away from Christ. And that you're there to help them because you may have the ability to do that. I believe the Holy Spirit will give you the ability to do that, even if you don't go into the relationship knowing it. So, for instance, exploring how the person came to fall away from the Lord in a really non-judgmental kind of way. Saying what happened, what happened when you kind of changed, you didn't want to serve the Lord. And they may share with you, oh, no, that's not the way it happened. I did want to serve the Lord. It's just, I met this person. I met this, girl, boy, whatever. I got attracted to them, and which I couldn't help. They were, whatever. And it was just by getting involved with them. And it was just slowly, I just got more and more involved. And all of a sudden I was doing things that I knew was not right with the Lord. And and I fell away, and I no longer felt close to him. I no longer felt like I knew him. And I no longer felt his presence. Then you can, then at that point you can explore what led to that, what was the moment where you, excuse me, when you felt yourself slipping away. And like, for instance, in a situation like that, very often it comes because there are certain parts of our human nature that just step in and do what they just do what they do. So it's, for instance, attraction to another person just happens. It's happened before you even realize it. You just walking down the street, you see this person and you just think, oh my goodness, what a good looking person, or you just feel attracted to them. You don't know why. If you explore that, that's very often the moment that a slipping away from the Lord happens. It just sort of, some aspect of being human draws us away. So helping them to go back to that moment, and first of all, to recognize what happened in that moment that was wrong. That, for instance, if let's just say me, because that's who's talking. You're looking at me, when I tell you this, it's going to be like you're looking at me at my age and thinking, yeah, that doesn't happen. But it could. Okay, let's say I've been married for over 50 years, but I meet somebody here. He's very interesting, and he's older, and I find myself being attracted to him, drawn away from my husband, which incidentally would draw me away from the Lord. So why might that happen? I mean, that's what I would explore with a mentee if I was going to do that. If I found out that they had fallen away because they got involved in this relationship or something, I would explore that. I would say, what happened? And it always comes down to a few steps that were taken right at the beginning that I shouldn't have done, and that's the point at which there's some repentance that needs to be done. And that opens the door then to being able to access everything I knew about Jesus before, but couldn't access because I'm closing the door off to him as I drift farther and farther away. So I might realize that, well, that there were certain things, that I shouldn't have done. Like I should not take advantage of a moment when I could sit down to talk to him. That I have to remember that this is a choice between serving the Lord and not. It isn't just a choice between being faithful to my husband and not. It's a choice between serving Jesus or not. And which one of those do I want to do? I want to serve Jesus. So there are times when I have to say to my flesh, no. Okay, so I think whenever you get into a thing with somebody who knows the Lord, has known the Lord, and they know all this information, what they don't know is how they got off track. And they need help to know how I got off track and how I can get back on track. And so that's where you could help them by exploring what got you off the track, and exploring what could be done, and possibly leading into a little repentance there. Because I've noticed that a lot of times we'll do things at the beginning of a relationship or a veering off. Let's say I get interested in some subject that is just really not right. It's like, some people get interested in witchcraft, and they just, oh, I just want to know about it. But then they find themselves getting drawn into it, or they just want to spend time with this group. They look like so much fun, and they do, and then they are drawn away from the Lord because that group likes to party and drink and get into trouble, and in terms of relationship with Jesus. So helping people to know this is how that happened. Let's look at what got you off track, because you know a lot. There's not a lot I'm going to be able to teach you that you don't know, except that maybe you don't know what happened back here. Let's look at that, and then we'll see if there's anything else I can help you with. And a lot of people, they would really benefit from that. I'm sitting here just thinking about it, times that I have felt myself get off track. It was just tiny little steps at the beginning, making a decision to spend time with something that I shouldn't have spent time with. I'll just mention a one that isn't, well, it can be and it isn't. One of the things that the Lord has shown me, one of Satan's best tricks to get us off track, is distraction. And distraction is easy in this world with all of the media and information we can get on internet and all the subjects we can learn about. If you're a person like me who has a lot of different things I could be interested in, I could spend all day just following my little, trails of interest on the computer. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere in terms of accomplishing something. I would have just learned a lot of primarily useless information. But maybe one of the worst ways we can get distracted is by the games and the entertainment and whatnot that's on internet. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to watch a movie. Not at all. Not at all. Please don't misunderstand me, and do not feel guilty if you like to watch a movie, even a few times a week. I have nothing against that. It's when something becomes, you just do it to fill in time. You've got some time and you just do that to fill in time. So there came a time whenever I found that I was getting just too hooked on games on my phone. It's funny because I'm not the kind of person that I don't like to play some of the games that people do with shooting things and stuff. But I like to play good games, that where I thought I was helping my brain to stay sharp on different things. And one day the Lord just told me, he told me, stop playing the games. And the nice thing about the Lord is when you hear something like that, he says it very kindly. He just told me, Robin, you need to stop playing games. You're wasting a lot of time on something that isn't worthwhile. And so I said, well, Lord, you're going to have to help me with this, please. And he did. His grace was good and helped me to just drop them. And it was shocking to me how much time I had given to that. I was shocked at how many times I was sitting there just thinking, wow, I have an hour here and I could spend it any way I want to here, but I'm not going to spend it on games like I used to. Just showed me I was wasting a lot of time that could be spent on useful things. So that's a way that you can get drawn away from the Lord. And recognizing the tricks and traps of the evil one and how he gets us off track and distracts us from our relationship from the Lord with the Lord. Remember that he distracts us from it. Remember what in the book of Revelation, God says about lukewarmness. See, we don't have to walk completely away from our relationship with the Lord in order to be not pursuing our relationship. We can be lukewarm, and it's just as destructive. And distraction is one way Satan turns a hot relationship with the Lord into a lukewarm one. So there's lots of places to look for why a person might have left the Lord, basically left their first love. So does that help at all, Gift?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So where do we stand, Branley?
Yeah, thank you so much, Grandma. I really think we are covered big time. I mean, I love how this has been orchestrated by the Lord. Most of our questions have been answered. I managed to jot down a few things, and I've shared them on a chat bar.
I saw that. Good.
Yeah, I hope they can be of help to us. Yeah, but I just want to say thank you, Grandma, for spending this time with us. I feel so much blessed and privileged to have you in my life. And
well, I'm blessed and privileged to have you in my life. So
yeah,
yeah.
we are all blessed to have you here today. To hear you share the word of God, and basically very practical things we can like some practical knowledge we can put into practice as we help others. I think personally, I don't have a lot to say. I want to give this a minute, like few seconds, to anyone who has a word to say as we are about to go to conclusion. Like, would just love
Well,
as we go. Yes, Grandma.
Before we move on, I was looking at your summary, which is very good. And I think that this is just a wording thing. But in the last one, it says, get to know your mentee as much as you can. Be humble enough for them to tell you all they would love to tell you. I would say all that they need to tell you.
Okay.
There are a lot of things that people don't want to tell you, but they need to. They need to tell somebody. They need to dig into it, but they don't want to because it's ugly. They don't want to be that ugly in front of you. Does that make sense?
It does, Grandma.
Yes.
I have edited that.
Okay. Well, I just you didn't need to edit it. I was just saying that I've heard you use that phrasing before and I understand it, but I wanted to make sure it was clear. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Grandma.
You're welcome.
Well, yeah, once again, God bless you. I want to give you seconds to almost like everyone who has been able to join this call. If you have like a word of appreciation or anything to say to Grandma as we are coming to an end, kwa kifupi, very brief, if you can just say a word. And then as we'll be concluding, we'll invite again Grandma to say a prayer for us. So I'm going to start with Leader. If you have a word to say, please.
Oh, okay. So I don't have much, but thank you, Bibi, for taking your time and joining with us. And thank you for all the madini. What's madini? Thank you for all the things that you have taught us. And of course, it has been a short time, but I believe in one way or the other, one or two things will help us and make sure that our mentoring journey is impactful and it's good. So we'll be glad to meet you again. So thank you for coming. God bless you.
Thank you.
Yes, Robin, thank you so much for your time. And
You're welcome.
I would call this, if I was given an opportunity to name this session, I would say knowing the mentee or knowing your audience. Yeah, so thank you so much for reminding me to know the people I mentor, the people I disciple.
Mhm.
I hope we'll get some other time to connect with you. And thank you, Branley, for the opportunity.
Thank
It's
you,
good to meet
Shaban.
you.
Thank you so much. Belina.
Okay, thank you, Bibi, for your time. Thank you for accepting the invitation to share with us everything that God has posted in you. Actually, I've got a lot of things, and I'm sure they're going to help me in this journey that is ahead. So we would like to welcome you again to share with us other things, and we believe that you're going to keep in touch. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Belina. Joshua, then Dustin, then Elisha.
Yeah, thank you, Grandma, for the sharing. So may God bless you so much. Welcome again. Thank you.
Thank you. May God bless you in your work, all of you.
Yeah, mine is to appreciate you, Bibi Robin. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Personally, I've learned a lot, and we wish you the best on whatever you're doing. But if God give you another opportunity to come back to CLA, Arusha, we'd be glad. Yeah, but thank you so much for sharing.
I'd love to.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Bibi, for sharing with us. Actually, it was a time to learn new things, learn new mentorship. Also, it was a time to unlearn something.
Thank you for being here.
Then I want to take the microphone to Gift.
Thank you, Bibi, for your profound sharing. May God bless you. We love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca. Rebecca. All right.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
we can.
can.
It's good to see you, Bibi Robin. I'm so happy to see you. It's been a while.
Yes.
I last saw you at CLA, and I privileged for being here. Thank you
Glad
so
for the
much.
opportunity.
Mhm.
Can I just say another word, Branley? I just want to say that, nothing I shared today was particularly wise. I think mostly it was reminding you of things that we sometimes don't realize fits in a certain place, or just emphasizing and reminding you of skills that you already have and know. I remember when I was learning how to do timeline work, one of the things I struggled with was how do I, somebody would come in with a certain kind of mental health issue. How do I use the timeline on this? And people that had gone there before would help me figure out how the timeline worked with this. And that helped me so that I can pretty much, anybody who walks in, I can figure out how to use the timeline with them. And it always produces some good change. And but I needed somebody. It was simple stuff. And honestly, I felt at the time, I felt like, well, why didn't I see that? But it's just good to have reminders of the little things that are important in working with other people. So, I just wanted to acknowledge that really what I've gotten the opportunity to do is remind you of things that you probably aware of, but maybe didn't know how to use it there. Does that make sense? Like I got a screwdriver, I know to use it here. Oh, I didn't know I could use it over here. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So, okay.
Yeah, that makes sense, Grandma. That makes sense. Yeah, I think pretty much it. I think everyone has said something. God bless you so very much, Grandma, for spending your time with us. We love you, and we are honored to have you share all this wisdom. Yeah, it was such a huge blessing, and we have recorded this session. We'll share for people to reflect. So for the mentors, part of our assignments next week, we'll be watching this video again and taking some notes from it, just to get this message go home. And I know Grandma